What's up, guys? I want to welcome you to part 2 on getting rid of shoulder pain from bench press. So my first tip is completely unrelated to the form, just the setup. I have a question for you. Have you ever brought a measuring tape to the gym and seen what the width of your bench actually is? Because I'll say this, if it's 10 inches, that's the culprit behind your shoulder pain. And if you're a muscular guy, can't you see why this would be a problem? Look at this Thompson fat pad, for example. If you're broad, your shoulders aren't going to be hanging off to a tremendous extent. Which means what? Maximum stability of the upper back. This is literally the foundation from what you press off. So if I'm pressing off a wider base, my shoulders are in a far more stable position. This is what I'm talking about. You guys are benching off those super narrow pads, which leads to that shoulder overhang that I was talking about before. You're back here instead of being locked in into your back. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying you need to bench this wide. That's what I chose for maximum effects, but the truth is, 12 inches will suit you perfectly. Excellent sweet spot and probably better off for doing things like incline. So all I'm saying is don't cheap out on buying a nice bench. And if you're at a commercial gym, pick the best one that's available. All right, you don't want to be flopping on the bench. That's how you get stacked up, especially when using really heavy weights. Now, if you're like, Alex, I wish I could do what you're suggesting, but simply don't have the setup, don't worry. What I'm about to suggest right now is the next best thing, and it's what I would personally do if I was stuck in your shoes. Never would I bench off a 10-inch pad again. The floor press, which you might already be doing if you're following my novice program. Why is it so amazing? Well, look how tight I can get. Back, locked in. It feels like I'm on a fat pad right now, if not more, because the floor is extremely wide. Therefore, you will never be a loose spaghetti. And by touching the ground softly, it also maintains that tightness. Even more so, in my opinion, than a pause bench. It's all about preventing that side-to-side shifting and muscular imbalances, which the floor will stop you from developing. So if you've been refusing the bench press, give this a shot and you might be really surprised. Now, going back to the bench, another thing I can highly recommend is using the Swiss bar. This is excellent for anyone who's had injuries in the past, or you simply want to change your default style to something that is neutral. In the previous segment, I discussed how internal shoulder rotation coupled with that wider grip can be problematic. The Swiss bar, by design, eliminates that completely. The widest position has my wrists and elbows quite aligned. It's not super diagonal, whereas the standard bar might be out to here. At the same time, my elbows are perfectly tucked in. You can't get more tucked in this with a grip that is outside shoulder width. It's neutral pressing, man, which will hammer the triceps and modify the leverages. In this way, you can get more out of less weight. This is definitely the best bar for minimizing shoulder injuries from bench press. You do this long enough and your shoulders will become rejuvenated while minimizing overuse. Can't recommend it enough, and you'll also find it to be way harder. For me, my best was 350 with the Swiss bar while I had a 385 regular bench. All right, gym bros press from here, which feels absolutely terrible, even right now for me. The smarter lifters tuck a little bit, and then the neutral grippers are all the way in, which really takes that negative stress off the shoulders. So if you've tried every form cue and nothing's worked, please give the Swiss bar bench press a shot. It might just be the only variation that allows you to press safely. As a bonus tip, feel free to do this on your dumbbell benching as well. Alternatively, you could use the reverse grip, which puts you into external rotation while bringing your elbows in all the way forward, and you're pressing the bar away from you, not drifting backwards, which is where a lot of the shoulder injuries come into play. Biomechanically, it's a relatively safe position. Just that if the bar slips out, you're going to be in serious trouble. So make sure you have safety pins while having a good spotter next to you that you can trust. So do I recommend the reverse grip? Yes and no. It all depends if you're willing to take the risks. Though I will say that it feels amazing on the shoulders, which is the topic for today's video. So besides those modifications, another thing you could do is change the strength curve itself. And in this video, I'm recommending the chain bench press. Why this over bands? Well, it feels more like straight weight. And it's easier to track if you're someone who happens to care about the precise numbers. This can vary a lot depending on your height. And also, you get overspeed eccentrics with bands, which can be harder on your recovery if you're doing tremendous amounts of volume or maxing out. So there's not only the concentric portion to overcome, there's the fact that they're pulling hard throughout the entire repetition. Whereas chain pressing is just this. At the top, chains are fully lengthened, and as I lower the weight, they come down with the bar. So I press up, boom, fully lengthened. So you're deloading the bottom a little bit, which is where most of the strain occurs. And as you go through the range of motion, it gradually gets heavier. So the triceps from this position to here are going to get a bit more of a workout. That said, your shoulders are still going to get massive. It simply is a ratio. You might have 10 to 15% less out of the bottom than what you're used to, which is fine because if you're a little bit achy, it's exactly what you need. And it's good to rotate variations to prevent overuse. This is one of the best tools for doing exactly that. For those who are new to chain pressing, I'd recommend starting off with 20 to 30 pounds. Excellent starting point. As you get stronger, you can work up to doing 60 pounds or even 90 by combining two types of tensions into one. But that is reserved for advanced or even elite benchers. All right, they don't have to be heavy. Most of you will be perfectly fine with a simple setup. Now, sometimes you'll see gym bros recommending partial reps, which I really don't recommend. Usually this has to do with form, which I'm kind of doing right now. Elbows are flared out to the side and I'm bringing the bar too high up. So these guys get pain because they're not tight and their grip is far too wide. All they would have to do is grab the bar more closely and tuck those elbows. You don't have to do manual partials from here. But if you felt compelled to do so, given your long arms or whatever injuries you may have had in the past, or you simply don't want to go in that deep position, I do have a solution for you that doesn't involve manually performing partials. The board press, which powerlifters discovered many decades ago as a superior option. The reduction of range of motion is so minimal, but just enough to have your shoulders feeling that much better. This is great if you just overloaded on a full range of motion press, or you want to smash the top part of the bench press a little bit harder at the end of your workout. I would advise doing this as a second or third press, or even maxing out if you're feeling achy that day. The key to optimizing this for hypertrophy is to do no more than a 1 to 2 board press. Going beyond that point will provide less carryover and a great reduction in range of motion, which is not ideal in any type of way. Whereas this position right here is perfect as a yearly substitution. Or like I said, just mixing it in within your workouts. This is so much safer than manual partials and a lot more consistent, while providing way better carryover to the standard flat bench. Anyway, those are my best tips, but I'll end off this video with one final strategy if you really are banged up and you've tried everything and nothing seems to work. This is the last resort, which is dropping the weight considerably and using higher repetitions of say 15 to 20 with tempo included. You gotta do whatever it takes to get more out of less weight. And if that means training more like a bro bodybuilder, then so be it. You're still gonna get jacked and strong as long as you push your limitations. The secret is to make sure that your reps are taken close to failure. If the intensity factor is not there, you will fail with this approach. But if your mind is right, get ready to make some real gains. Just that it is less efficient for most people. I recommend 3 to 5 sets of 20, which is what I personally do on my volume days. Though I won't keep the tempo this slow. I might just control on the way down, but I explode on the way up. So I'll hit reps of 20 like this. But if you're really snapped up, this right here might be the only option for you, which is okay if you push yourself hard enough. So get ready for your pecs to freaking explode, because that's pretty much what you're gonna feel when you're doing it at this pace with this amount of volume. So don't be discouraged, you'll still get watermelon pecs from high rep bench press. In fact, this will raise your strength potential because a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle. And once you're all healed up and you're ready to do some of the cues I talked about before in part 1 and throughout this video, your 1 rep max will actually climb if you choose to specialize in that. And with that said, you should be all set for bench pressing safely. No more will shoulder pain afflict you when doing this exercise. If you followed everything I showed you, then the only reason why you would still be getting pain is due to past occurrences or overuse/bad programming. So I hope you enjoyed these 2 videos. If you want me to cover other muscle groups or exercises, let me know in the comment section and I'll be sure to help you out.